10. 10 episodes. 10 weeks. 10. By the time that I release this episode, I will be able to say that I have done 10 full episodes of this podcast. Isn't it weird? It feels like I've been doing this for longer, yet this is so new. I have only done 10 episodes. Just 10. And also, 10. Today, I want to go unscripted again and reflect on the lessons that I have learned from doing this podcast for the past 10 weeks. What has surprised me, what some of you have reached out to say resonated with you. Just gonna reflect on as much as I can. And yeah, that's gonna be the gist of today. We're gonna keep it simple and just talk about the fact that I am doing episode 10. Hi, I am Raysa, a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And you are listening to Hello Trauma Brain, a podcast where I share my experiences living with complex PTSD. My hope is this podcast can help destigmatize mental health and provide support to anyone diagnosed with CPTSD who thinks they might have it or has a loved one with this diagnosis. Quick reminder, I am not a licensed psychologist or mental health care professional, and this podcast is not meant to replace nor substitute the care of psychologists, other mental or medical health care professionals. If you think you might have complex PTSD or PTSD, please reach out to your primary care or mental health care provider. Any individuals and resources mentioned in this episode are not sponsoring Hello Trauma Brain. This episode may reference trauma or abuse, and listener discretion is advised. Remember, you can always pause or skip this episode at any time. And now, let's get back to the episode. Hello, dear survivors, and welcome to this 10th episode of Hello Trauma Brain. Thank you for joining me today. If you are noticing my voice being a bit deeper, that's because I got sick. I got COVID. I'm recovering and starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And stay tuned for next week's episode, because I will be talking more about how being sick triggered all sorts of things with my complex PTSD and how I managed to get to this point today. Now, in this episode, again, I'm going to go unscripted, and I just want to reflect on these first 10 episodes and how it has been for me to continue doing this podcast, release it, and how it has been for me to take in some of the feedback I have received from you, from the listeners, from my beloved survivors and peeps that keep tuning in every week. Before I start reflecting, I want to say thank you so much. I am floored and humbled by the fact that you keep showing up every week. It's a bit surreal because the way I do this podcast is I record it, I edit it, I schedule it to come out. I set it for midnight on the Thursdays. And by the time, depending on the platform that you are listening to, you might see the episode pop up right away, or you might need to wait a few hours before you can hear it. And depending on the platform, some of them take days. I'm not sure why they're taking so long, but there are platforms that are taking days to show the episode. And I'm going to take a guess that you might not be using those because you probably are using the ones that reflect the podcast almost immediately. Basically, when I set it to release at midnight, I kind of sleep through the first few hours of the podcast out there. And it almost blows my mind when I wake up the next day and I can see that there's views already. It's like, oh my gosh, people were listening to this like right away. That's nuts. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you are listening, that you're taking your time. There's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of content. Your valuable time, it's a precious thing, and you could be doing anything with your time. And the fact that you tune in and you take your time to listen to whatever the heck I have to say and on a given week is just, again, it blows my mind. It does. Let me see where I would like to take this reflection from here. I guess I kind of want to go to as close as I can get to the beginning mentally. What have I learned? Okay. Very early on, I knew I wanted to use the approach of having like a master template. And that kind of had a bit of setbacks because the master template I built initially had some corrupted files and it started to become a problem. So some things I did have to re-record recently to kind of just accept and exercise my radical acceptance and just, work around the fact that what I thought I would not have to record ever again just became corrupted. It kept having issues, and when I was converting into the new episode, and we adapt. That's what we do when we have CPTSD. If you have a lot of the funding response to, I feel like for those of us that have the funding as a default, we're very adaptable individuals. And as much as we try to prepare for all the scenarios when something goes wrong, we just go with the flow and okay, all right, I guess we are re-recording this thing, as opposed to being on the rigid end, which can happen too. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but I don't tend to be on the rigid end. I don't tend to be like, well, I only should be able to record this once. Why do I need to record it again? Like, I don't really get into that mindset. And yeah, that's been something that basically was different from what I was expecting, I guess. Let's see, what else have I learned? I had the intention of batch producing and doing like a few episodes all at once. Turns out this is the first time I'm doing this. I'm going to record 2 episodes today. I am getting ready to do some traveling, and I am better off recording the episode, and if I don't do it this way, you probably wouldn't get something next week. So I'm gonna try to for the first time do the batch producing, even though that was originally the intention I had. I thought I would do a few and I would go for a few weeks without having to record and produce, and it hasn't worked out that way up to now. It's been I've been doing an episode every week, and every weekend I'll record it, and then I edit it towards the beginning of the week, and then by the end of by the time I get to the middle of the week, ideally, it's ready and scheduled to release on Thursday. I think one of the things that surprised me from doing this is when I hear the feedback that you've given me. And by the way, thank you to all of you that have reached out with feedback. It's been so helpful. Hearing you loud and clear. I have been very fortunate that the feedback has been positive so far, which is interesting. One of the things that held me back from doing the podcast for a while was the fear that I would start getting really nasty comments or messages or emails or whatnot. And I have to say, I've been shocked at the fact that the feedback and the comments have been so lovely, still are, and it might not stay like that forever, but I will say I'll take it. 10 weeks of solid positive feedback is not bad, and I'm gonna pat myself in the back and again say thank you to you for reaching out, because if you don't reach out and tell me, I wouldn't have any feedback at all. But in terms of the feedback, again, it's one of those things where you'll point something out and I didn't know that it was something either unique or something that might not come as easily for other people until you pointed it out. One of those things has been the format of the podcast, how it has been helpful. There was feedback that I got from a friend that heard a draft before I released it, and one thing that my friend pointed out was how quickly I came up with the healing invitation. And I want to say that was for the unscripted episode. And it kind of like hit me like, oh, really? Like, I thought that was like a standard time. Because usually like it doesn't take me that long to, I still think of like the script takes me, it takes me time. But it's not that long. Like I might sit for like, during the morning on a Saturday and kind of like, jot down what I want to do. But yeah, it kind of just comes on the spot. And I took that ability for granted. I didn't realize that was something that maybe for other people that wouldn't come so easily. And I guess for me, I'm good at thinking on the spot. I think that's something that was very helpful to me when I was facilitating meetings. There's something that gets turned on in my brain like a little light bulb, and it makes it easier for me to grasp or to get in touch with what I want to convey. And maybe it's faster for me than it is for other people, but I don't know if it comes from the fact that I am so adaptable and so aware of my surroundings, or what is it? I don't know if it is CPTSD related or not, but I'll take it. I think it is. We can become very good at thinking on the spot and kind of like stepping up to the plate when the time arrives. And I think it's a survival thing, and maybe it's a manifestation of a flight response. I don't know. I have to think about that a little bit more. But again, it's something I wasn't aware that was, I guess, unique about me until someone pointed it out just a few short weeks ago. And other things I have heard are how some of you really enjoyed the movie illustrations. Those episodes for me are a little bit like fun in terms of I get to watch a movie and I get to like dissect the movie and talk about it. And I love analyzing things. So for me, it was like, oh, this will be like a nice break from the stuff, even though I'm still talking about heavy things. But it's it's one of those things where when you've reached out to say, oh, that was like really neat that you did that, and you've given me ideas for other movies I could do and things like that. Like I appreciate you. That's really helpful. And I'm glad that you're also enjoying those episodes, because again, they're fun for me. And I think the movie illustration series, that's a good way to introduce this information in a more palatable way. I don't know if I just butchered that word. Hopefully I did. Oh, and that's triggering another reflection, which is getting used to hearing my voice. I have to say I got used to hearing my voice pretty quickly. And I think it might have to do with the fact that I have gotten used to hearing my singing voice. And it's one of those things where like I kind of have been through the shock of hearing my own voice. And at this point, it doesn't freak me out as much. I will say this though. I was shocked when I started getting your feedback about how my voice was good for podcasting. This might sound bizarre to you, but for me, it was like, really? My voice is good for podcasting? Like, it sounds good? Like, you think it's soothing? You think it's calm? What? And I think the reason it shocked me so much is because I'm used to getting compliments on my singing voice. I have heard a good amount of times that my singing voice sounds, pleasant to someone who's listening. And the compliments usually come from that. I don't usually hear someone complimenting my speaking voice. So that was very new for me. I really wasn't expecting that one. I'll tell you that. And even when I have been in environments where I'm talking, like usually I'm not the person that would get you have a good podcasting voice compliment. Like other people in the room might get that. And I usually agree, like, yep, like I can pinpoint those people who have this just soothing voice. And I just never consider myself to be part of that group. And to hear people say that apparently my voice is pleasant to listen to, like my speaking voice, just like, oh wow, okay. I believe you all, and I thank you for making me aware, because I honestly didn't know. And it reminds me of something I heard Patrick Tehan once say in one of his videos. And it might have been one of the shorts that he does for YouTube. And I think they come from TikTok, but quite frankly, I'm not on TikTok. So I've seen it when he reposts it in YouTube or in Instagram. But the post goes something along the lines of, you are the last one who knows that you're cute or interesting or funny or whatever. Like, it's almost like we're not aware. Like when we've been through this long-term trauma situation, we're just not aware of our qualities, of our gifts, of what we bring into the table. We're so focused on monitoring everybody else to make sure we're safe that it, like, to me at least, is just shocking when I hear someone point out something that's good about me, or compliment something about me, because like, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that was a thing, and I didn't know that made me unique, or that was something that was pertaining to me. Hopefully this makes sense. I'm kind of like talking away here, and let's see, what else have I learned? I have learned, oh yes, I have learned to sit with the discomfort of being overwhelmed sometimes. Like, I had envisioned the podcast having shorter episodes than what they have been, historically speaking. I thought I would keep it like 20 minutes or less. That was the initial idea, especially because when I did the test, I thought I had a longer episode than I actually had. So I didn't think I could potentially talk for as long as 30 or 40 minutes. And so far, the longest I've done like a raw cut, it was a 51-minute take. I think it was for the what episode was that? I want to say it might have been the Invisible Man episode. But I remember when I finished recording, it's like 51 minutes. Dang. And I edited it down, and it turned out to be like 40 minutes or something like that. But I just remember being so shocked. Like, how did I get so good at talking for a long time all of a sudden? Like, how did that happen? I went from thinking I had 30 minutes and recording it, and it was only 10, to I thought I would just record for 10 minutes, and it turns out it's like 40 to 50 minutes long. So that has been shocking too. That was a learning curve, and in the beginning it was a little overwhelming because, the more I talk, that's the longer I have to edit, and the longer I have to edit, the longer I have to listen to the drafts. And if something goes wrong and I have to restart listening, then it all adds up. And I remember at the beginning being like, oh my gosh, am I gonna be able to sustain this? Like, I really was concerned, and somehow I have been. Somehow it's still here. I'm still talking. Right now I'm looking at the thing. It says 20 minutes. By the time I edit this down, it won't be as long as what I'm recording right now. But still, like, it just, wow. It's interesting. And I don't want to dive too deep into this reflection, but it kind of brings to me this whole concept of time, and how human beings, like, we're not great at time perception. Like, time is just this weird concept, and sure, we have managed to figure out how to keep track of time and quantify it somehow. But when it comes to our personal perception, like if you put the clock away or you put the timer away or whatever, depending on what's happening, time can go slow, or it can go quick, or it can be a hybrid of those things. And I think that's the thing with this podcast. Like, sometimes I'll be recording and I thought it was a shorter episode and it was longer, or vice versa. And, sometimes I'm like, oh, this is going to be a long one to listen to. And before I know it, it's already done anyway. It's like, oh, wow, that didn't feel like it was that long. Have you had that happen? Is this resonating with anyone out there? Hopefully I'm not alone. I don't think so. I don't think I'm alone. I think I've heard enough people point out how just the perception of time is so distorted for us human beings, and it just it's so fluid, and it changes. It's really hard to control it, and I think that's the key. Like, I feel like sometimes, like, for me, my CPTSD shows up constantly, and this need to control things. And if I can manage to control every outcome, then I'll be safe. And I can barely control anything. There's so many things that are completely outside of the realm of what I can reach. I can't even try to control it. It's like I can't even get it. I can't even touch it. It's too far away. It belongs somewhere else. It belongs to someone else. And yeah, it's just so interesting. Let's see, what else have I learned? I'm not 100% sure on this because like roller coaster is still the data is still like coming in, so I don't have like official numbers on that episode, but it seems to be one that has resonated quite a bit with you all. I've received quite a bit of messages about the roller coaster episode, and I'm glad that it was a helpful metaphor to you. I think the imposter pilot and hypothesis episode is the most popular so far, with the one with the most views. And it could be because it's the one that's been around the most. I don't know. I'm only like 10 weeks in, so I'm like trying to like figure out some patterns. And at the same time, I kind of have to remind myself, Raysa, you're only 10 weeks in. Like you can still put 90 days on the thing, and it shows a time period where you were not even podcasting yet. Like that's how new you are. You're not even 3 months old. Like, to think that this podcast is a baby. This is still a baby podcast, and I'm still figuring out how to do this. And there's so many things that I know I am probably getting wrong that I don't realize I'm getting wrong. And it's just, yeah, it's really bizarre, and it's kind of weird to think that at one point I will get far enough into this podcast where I will look back and probably, I will hear things that are very different. Like, oh my gosh, I forgot I used to do that. Or oh, wow, I said that? Wow, that's great. Or maybe it'll be something like, oh, I can't believe I said that. I better make a correction episode. It's just bizarre. And there have been times where I went back and I heard like some of the older episodes. And again, they're all new, technically speaking. But to me, it's like the first stuff that I released. And I often forget things that I even said. And I'll be like, oh, wow, I said that. Huh, interesting. That's very interesting. I forgot I realized that, or I forgot I said that. And it's almost like I get to go back in time and remind myself of things that I might have forgotten since I recorded the episode, if that makes any sense. And I think that's why this podcast is such a great tool for my healing, because I get to hit play and hear where my mind state was a few weeks ago. Even with the check-ins that I offer, like I might forget. So here's the thing. I have a good memory, and at the same time, the CPTSD does mess with my memory. Like I've had moments where I remember, and this is something that has happened to me a bunch of times. Like I will talk to someone. Let's just say I talked to someone last night, and then the next day they'll message me like, oh my gosh, like I've been thinking about what you said about this. And then I'm like, oh, I said that? Like I forgot. Honestly, I forgot. Like there are things that once they're out of my mouth, like it's almost like my brain doesn't perceive those things as something that needs to be kept in the hard drive. And then it's really annoying because then I remember other things that get stored in the hard drive that I wish I forgot, but they're not going anywhere. They're just like embedded in there against my will. And when I get to hear previous episodes, it's like I get to remind myself, it's like, oh, that's right, I was going through that. It's like, oh, that's right, I did do that back in August. And yeah, again, just truly wild how it works. Has the podcast been helping me heal? I'm going to go with yes. Podcast has done a few things already. In these very new and humble episodes, I've learned that I can podcast. I can sit in front of a microphone and talk and say something that can bring meaning to someone else. Talk about like mind blown. I've learned that I have the skills to produce the whole thing on my own. Again, it's like, what? Yep. And I actually enjoy it. You might be surprised to hear this. I actually enjoy the editing process. There's something about it. It's one of those things that I didn't know I loved doing until I was doing it again for this. It's like, I forgot I love to do this. And it doesn't feel like this huge burden. I don't feel like I dread editing. Like I'm like, this is actually kind of cool, and it really feels fulfilling when I get to hear the final product. I think that's what really brings the whole thing home. When I can release it and hear it back, it's like, wow, dang, I did that. Like having that moment of like self-pride. It's like, oh my gosh, yo, check it out. I put this out there. What? So weird. So weird. And yeah, I'm gonna take a moment. I'm gonna take a moment right now. And just celebrate the fact that I've been doing this consistently for 10 weeks. And gosh, I already feel like I met the goal. I like the goal was to help at least one person. And if I take the data, which is that more than one person have reached out to let me know how the episode impacted them, how it helped them, how it led to a realization. Wow. Wow. Dang. That's amazing. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. I I've heard from some of you that you started playing music again. I heard from others that you started writing. I've heard that it gave you a sense of you were not alone. It's amazing. And I am so proud of you because if you are listening to this, that means you want to heal. That means you have a loved one that you want to see get better. That means that you're taking your time to learn about narcissistic abuse, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, how to heal, how to get better, how to navigate a world where there's a lot of people out there that are just energy vampiring their way through life. And you don't want to stay a victim of this anymore. You want to survive. You want to thrive. You want to live a life on your own terms where you are not stuck and helpless anymore. And to take the steps, to take the time to listen to something like this and to go on your own healing journey, that's huge. So big. There are like no words in the dictionary that can capture how big this is. And I want to celebrate you too. I'm so humbled. I'm so speechless, even though I've been talking for over 30 minutes. In a way, at the end of the thing, I'm almost like left speechless because I struggle to find the words that can capture how meaningful doing these 10 episodes have been for me. Things have come up and I'm even sick right now. Life keeps happening and I'm still here showing up. And I have ideas for things I want to bring to you in the future in other episodes. It won't be always movies. For example, I do want to start the song illustration series, and I think I'm going to start next month. So stay tuned for that. And there are other different series I want to start bringing. And this podcast has become such a great exercise in creativity. Like my creative cup feels very full these days because I feel like coming up with the concept, with the theme, recording it, editing it, even the social media. Oh my gosh, the social media. So here's the thing. You might have picked up on this if you are following Hello Trauma Brain on Instagram. I'm not a social media person. I don't post a lot. Like if you look at my personal Instagram, I've posted recently because I am posting Hello Trauma Brain stuff in there. But if you look at actual personal posts, barely any. It's been a while. It's very draining for me to do the social media thing, and I am very aware that that's how I can get the word out there. So I'm giving it a shot, and I'm trying to be as creative as I can, and I'm still figuring it out. I'm still figuring out how to do like the quote post, how to do the post where the episode little soundbite is featured in, and gosh, I'm learning all these things, and I'm like completely out of my depth, and at the same time, it's a nice challenge. It's a good exercise for the brain to do something that is out of my comfort zone. And that's the thing. That's the thing with healing from CPTSD. You kind of have to go outside of the box and step outside of your comfort zone and start trying new things. And I think that has been like the biggest takeaway so far. How I am showing to myself that you're never too old, or it's never too late, or you're never too anything to try something you haven't before. Like this thing is not over till it's over. It doesn't matter how old any of us are. we can always try something new. And I think what I really want to drive home is the fact that just because you decide to try something new doesn't mean you need to keep doing it. You know, like with CPTSD, like things feel so black and white. Like you either go all the way in and I'm podcasting for 20 years or none of it at all. And right now I'm good with the 10 episodes. Like I feel like I can keep going and I will. And it also doesn't have to be 20 years. Maybe in a year it's done. Maybe in 3, maybe in 5. I don't know. And that's okay. There is no requirement for permanency when we're doing these things. We can change our minds at any time. That's allowed. And that's something I'm recovering from. Like changing my mind was just something that was so discouraged. And I almost felt like I got punished for changing my mind. And now I embrace it. It's like I can change my mind. Who said I can't change my mind? I absolutely can. And so can you. Now, as I'm trying to wrap up these reflections, I feel like more reflections will come, and I'll do more episodes. I think I will make a habit out of doing reflections every so many episodes. Yeah, I think that's all I have for today. So allow me to wrap these reflections by thanking you one more time. It won't be the last time I will thank you. But again, you have my deepest gratitude for being here, for listening, for supporting this podcast, for sharing it, for reflecting on it. As always, I invite you, please reach out. I love to hear from you. You can email the podcast. You can message me on Instagram. You can, on Spotify. I don't know if you know this, and this is something I learned recently too with this podcast, because I didn't know, again, I didn't understand a lot of these things till I was doing them. They even have a section where like I can post a question, and the question is always, was the episode helpful? And you actually can comment there and let me know. Let me know what's helpful to you. If you have any ideas for episodes, by all means. I got a note on my phone that's pretty long right now, but if I continue this every week as I'm planning to, I will need ideas, and I love your help. I think this is a collaborative effort, and I think I can get as much out of this as you are getting out of this. And yeah, I love to hear what you think. It's something you would love to hear in the future. Also things that you've heard that you want to hear more of, and things that you enjoyed. Absolutely, please let me know. I welcome all the feedback. It doesn't have to be good feedback all the time too. If there's something I can improve, by all means, let me know too. I want to make this podcast something that serves you. And that means correcting myself, tweaking things, making changes that will make this experience better for you as you're digesting this information, especially because of the nature of the content. This stuff is heavy. Stuff is just, it's not for the faint of heart. I tend to tell people my podcast is probably not something that a lot of people are binging out there. And, if you are, thank you. And if you're not, please take your time, take breaks. This is not, there is no right or wrong way. I really want to emphasize, this is all very invitational. I want you to make this podcast something that serves you, and make it what works for you. You can start the episode, you can skip it, you can fast forward, you can re-listen. Really, it's about what works for your schedule and for your healing journey. And one week you might be taking a break from the content, and you don't tune in that Thursday. That's fine. The podcast is not going anywhere. It's going to be there, and you can listen anytime. So I invite you to keep tuning in and keep joining me every week as I keep navigating this mess of healing, and I keep sharing what's working, what's not working, and all the stuff that comes along with this realm. In this week's healing invitation, I want to invite you to reflect on the past 10 weeks. How has your experience listening to Hello Trauma Brain been? Are there any healing invitations you've tried? How did it go? Reflect on that. I know some of you have tried new things and tried new hobbies and picked up instruments, and reflect on how that has been for you if you've picked up on something that you're trying that's new. And if you haven't, that's fine too. You can reflect on what your last 10 weeks have looked like. What has happened in your life? How did you handle it? What did you learn from it? Maybe you just learned about this podcast today. This is the first episode and you're just coming in. That's fine too. You can still reflect on the past 10 weeks of your life. I think reflecting is so important for all human beings, not just the CPTSD peeps here, including myself. I think reflecting is such a powerful way to take a look at where we are, what's happening around us, that awareness, that mindfulness, that ability to take a deeper look instead of continuing the autopilot. Like you wake up, you do the thing, you go to bed, breaking out of that loop a little bit to really look at what is happening during your day and see what comes up for you. And feel free to document it. I feel like sometimes we might forget the epiphanies we have, and documenting it can be a powerful way for you to look back and kind of remind yourself oh, that's right, I realized that. My brain made that connection a few months ago or a few weeks ago or just yesterday. And I forgot. I don't want to forget. Please let me know how this week's healing invitation goes if you choose to accept it. Before we wrap up this episode, all music and production is courtesy of yours truly. Also, I want to share a few ways you can support this podcast. You can subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or the platform you are using to listen. Share this episode with anyone you think can benefit from this content. Follow Hello Trauma Brain on Instagram. Subscribe to the Hello Trauma Brain YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when I post a new episode. And you can make a donation by getting me a coffee through the official bio site. No worries, all links will be provided in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll add one more thing. Another feedback I got from some of you is that you actually enjoyed the unscripted episodes. So here we go. I'll do more unscripted. I'll make it a series, and hopefully you enjoyed this unscripted episode too. And I'm hoping by the time I'm done editing it, it makes sense. So I feel like I jumped all over the place, but maybe that's me misperceiving the whole thing. Hopefully this makes sense and it has served you in some way. And I wish you the best as you reflect on the past few weeks of your life and what is happening right now. It is time for our farewell affirmations. You are welcome to repeat after me. I am enough. I am lovable. And I deserve to heal. I wish you a gentle week, and thank you for listening.